Now, a few years back, I started this set of videos, the question and answer videos, because the people that were responding to our channel that has 2,700 videos on it, I'd go through the comments from time to time and I'd see some that I really couldn't answer in a 2 or 3 word sentence. And I just thought it would be a better way to answer it would be to make a short video. And what's happened over the years, it's grown in popularity. People worldwide have sent in pictures and photos and questions and actually answers and good comments and some negative comments that we try to answer and use to our advantage. But it's an ongoing thing, and every so often we take all those questions and we try to answer them on a video, make it interesting and fun to watch, throw in a few funny stories and some news of the people restoring bikes in our area. Now, on today's video, we're going to answer questions sent in by our subscribers to the video channel and share some pictures of their latest projects and the progress they're making. We have some really old pictures donated by Mike Bell, and we have some other very interesting stuff from the world of motorcycling from all over the world. I hope you'll enjoy this video. Well, the first question I'm going to answer is really not a question. It's from Magnus in Norway. Magnus, these are the kind of emails I love to get. Of course, I love to get the ones that they're critiques of the video and they can help me make it better. And in that vein, I've got a brand new camera. Najat helped me pick out a brand new camera. We're going to be using it more and more as I learn how to use the features. But we should have some improvement very soon in the quality of the video because it's a Panasonic Lumix camera. I'm not sure about using all the features yet, but thank you, Najat, for your help. But beside the point, Magnus, this is really something I love to hear. He's got an MT-09 and he stumbled upon the Windy channel. He's in Norway and he says, hey, if Windy can do it, I can do it. Watch the videos, and he did it, and it came out great. Now there's only one thing left to do, Magnus. You got to send us some pictures, and we'll Photoshop them if we'll put you in there, make you look younger and everything. Anyway, Magnus, he asked another question here. The clear on the parts, regular clear or flat clear, which do you prefer? Well, Magnus, if you watched the videos over the years, I don't like flat anything. I like, if I lived in a world, it would all be shiny mirrors. But it's personal choice. And the first thing before you do any work on your motorcycle, you make it suit you. If you're building a bike and painting it and working on it to suit your friends, you're probably not going to be happy in the end. Build a bike you like. As Joe Roselli said, ride the bike you like. And if your friends don't like it, maybe you need some new friends. Turbo Steve sent in this information about clearing up a foggy windshield with a product I have not used yet, but I have a feeling in the future I'll be getting some of this. And if I get some, we'll do a little test on it. I think my minivan could use some cleanup too. It looks like a very good product, and that was shared by Turbo Steve. Now this is a comment I got, and I will give my answer, but don't assume my answer is the only correct answer or the best answer. It's just my answer. A fella named NOVD, I don't know how you would pronounce that, he sent me the dimensions of they're lowering the forks 14 millimeters for a GPZ 750, 16 millimeters for a GPX 600. Now, it could be, and I don't know because it was a very short email, and comment, I mean, but I wanted to make a point, and this is a great point. The factory always makes recommended settings for things. They recommend a certain tire pressure, as an example, a certain lowering of the forks, a certain distance between oil changes. But they do it based on what they think is going to be the average person. They don't do it for you. The average person weighs a certain amount, is a certain height, a certain weight, rides a certain way. But when you're Kenny Roberts, the rules don't apply. They change. Or if you're a guy that just goes out cruising in the evening down to the local bar, and the rules can change. Now, how the rules change, for me, lowering the forks, the amount I lower them, is so I'm happy with the dive in the corner. That's a thing from years of racing, or dirt biking even. But that's me. And if you didn't do it, nothing bad would happen. The bike would just be a little more difficult to get into start a corner. Some people like a bike that just stays straight no matter what you do. Some people like that real twicky bike. A lot of that has to do with lowering the forks. There's an amount you can do it, there's an amount that suits your weight. The same thing with tire pressure. If you think, you look at a manual, in the case of my R1, it says 36 in the front, 42 in the back. I tried that when I first bought the bike. Didn't work for me. Now, whoever they did that for, they did it for the maximum. If two people are riding the bike on a hot day, on a straight road or whatever, I don't know how they arrive at that. And I've watched other people that have made long videos of how to adjust what pressure you should use, and they're certainly competent people, but that can change from person to person. But the best thing is always, if there's a change you make to your bike and you can undo it, the best thing in a case of lowering the forks, if you lower it, let's say you lower it 14 millimeters, that's roughly an amount most people would try. And if things got better, lower it a little bit more. And if they got worse, up. It's called interpolation. It's a thing from aviation. And try it. If you're not happy, it's going to get better, better, worse, worse. Then you'll find that sweet spot. But I never assume that the factory, because they only get to address one person, the average customer. They're not addressing Kenny Roberts, and they're not addressing the guy that just bought his first 400 Ninja. They're addressing what they think is the average, and they're always out CYA, and you know what that means. But anyway, I wanted to address that, and I'm not disagreeing with somebody. If you were not in, or if you're a new rider and you can't feel the difference in when you lower the forks, then, or if you're an experienced rider that you can't feel it, then just put it at the factory setting and be done with it. And that applies to tire pressure. The interval on oil changes. A lot of people say, oh, the manual said 4,000 miles, but they go and do track days. Well, if you're doing track days, you're going to do it maybe a little bit more often. I don't know. Ooh. Tire changing, and we're going to talk about tires very soon, because we're at the time of the year where most people are getting ready to swap out their old tires. We're at the beginning of the riding season, and I have what I think is some good comments, and several other people have sent in comments about that. We're going to address that. And this is from Brisbane, Australia, our good friend Stephen Walker, who watches Windy videos on his 1-hour commute into the big city. And he just traded his R1 in for a Tracer, and he went on and on about how much he loves this bike, and he absolutely fell in love with the quick shifter. Congrats, Stephen. Okay, a fella named Damien sent in what I think is a very useful tip, a very good tip, and thank you, Damien, for sharing. He was going to take the stickers off his bike, which a lot of people do before they paint it. A lot of times if there's clear on top, you basically have to sand them off, which we're going to have to do to this tank very soon. And by the way, this is a tip I would do outdoors. I don't like to ever bring gasoline inside my house. But Damien said that gasoline took the sticker residue right off so he could paint the tank or polish it or whatever he was doing. And Damien, that is definitely true. Now, I've used M600, Gooby Gone. Karen had some stuff for, I don't even know what it's for cleaning the house or whatever. And that, by the way, is a good tip. Now, a fella named Juan. This is another good tip. And Luciano, I think, does this, but I'm not sure. He told me, but I kind of forgot in the beginning of the winter. He puts fuel stabilizer to keep the tanks from rusting. And it could be, and I don't, so I'm not disagreeing with him, but I'm just saying, my method of keeping a tank from rusting over the winter. Now, an example is, this is a tank we're going to be painting for Vlad in the next whatever. What's going to happen with this is, if you left this tank, even in your house, just sit for a long time, it's going to rust. And if you fill it with, I like to fill the tank, if I know I'm not going to use it like my Evil Twin GS tank, fill it with gas to the top, put some 2-stroke oil in, shake it up, and 10 years later, when you dump that out, it'll be like a brand new tank. Those, by the way, those are 2 really good tips. Now, Clyde graciously forwarded these old nostalgic photos for me from Mike Bell, Mike at Ballistic, and I'll put that up on the screen, of course, .net. You can check out his channel, and maybe this is just maybe the tip of the iceberg. There's some priceless stuff here, Wes Cooley, and anybody that goes back into the history of motorcycling knows what these scenes are. I certainly know. I've been to Daytona, and it's been fun. And thank you, Rafe. And some of the people in the pictures, when you go back and you see some of the 2 strokes, there's Wes Cooley again. Nice haircut, by the way. And when you look back, hey, Kenny Roberts, you look back at some of the nostalgia of the event, it just couldn't be any better. And thank you, Mike, and thank you, Clyde, for sharing these. And I got to check out the channel later and see some of the other things he's got. But it's really, really, this brought back a lot of just memories you'll never forget. Steve sent a comment in, and Steve has sent several really good comments in that we've taken to heart and used to our advantage. This is something that I run into all the time. I run into it at bike meetups, and Steve, I guess I've explained this to him, but it doesn't matter. It's not a contest. We're not here to have a contest. The idea is, he mentioned my Green Ninja looks like a 1990, and to me, the title says 1989, but that's debatable, because when we got the bike, it had already been, I'm sure it had been modified, crashed, changed. It had been through the mill. It was in a one of those container things with a hole in the roof leaking right onto the bike. Beside the point. Several people told me and again, I don't know the answer to that. Several people told me they think it's an 89, they think it's a 90. Ray had one. I'm not sure what year his was. Again, I don't know. I go by what's on the title, though, and I check the title to the frame. It says 89. But again, you could take, here's the thing, it's like my FZR. Somebody wrote in and they were trying to maybe enlighten me somewhat. They looked at my FZR and they said, your FZR can't be a 91, it's got a curved radiator. Well, without realizing, we bought the bike, it was wrecked for sure. It had bent forks and all kind of damage to the fairing and bodywork. Maybe they replaced the radiator with a more updated one. But don't forget, I didn't buy the bike brand new, so I don't know. And I don't try to, I go by what's on the title, and if the title says 91, it's a 91. No matter how many 89 parts or 92 parts or whatever you put on it, it doesn't really matter. Now, we'll get to the point where I guess I should explain this to a lot of people. And the series of videos that are going to follow this, I've titled them V1, V2, V3 for a simple reason. We are going to be working on 3 projects at exactly the same time. We're going to do it prioritizing it for Vlad. He's got the Daytona Moto Guzzi. He wants to make a Daytona paint job on us. We have a Buell that the clear needs to be redone. And we also have his BMW HP2, the Sport, and that is a collector bike. There's only 200 of those. So what I'm working on, I wanted to segment those out so that if somebody in the future, 5 years from now, says, I want to see all the work on the BMW, you just type my name and the letter V, and up will come boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for convenience. Now, I didn't do that with other video sets I made. The videos, the repair or the thing went across several videos, but I'm going to try to keep these V videos so you can access them. Even though there may be something in between, you can just access by the letter V. So those are 2 critical points for people that subscribe to the channel, and I want to thank Steve and all the people that send in commentary, because it always makes me think maybe I can make the videos just a little bit better. Now, these are some photos from our good friend Dallas out in Sacramento. He, of course, has an 83 GS, and he wound up getting an ultrasonic cleaner and did the complete rebuild on his carbs. And he sent me a whole bunch of pictures of taking these apart, cleaning them, ultrasonically cleaning them. And we put the bike back together, checked the temperature of the 4 exhaust pipes, make sure everything was right the way it should be. And boy, I know this is a big job, but having that ultrasonic cleaner, boy, would that make it a lot easier. I see he's using tuna fish cans too, something I've done. Anyway, he has got one of the cleanest, nicest, best maintained GSs that I've ever seen. A lot of upgrades, and we correspond all the time. It is lovely wife Nancy made me an apron so when I cook I don't get anything on my my GS shirt. Anyway, beautiful GS, and he's also got a nice touring bike. Check that one out, and that's just whistle clean too. So this comment is from Randall. Randall, I wish I had an answer for this. He has an RD with an electrical issue with the headlight and whatever, and I can only suggest when people have electrical issues, Call somebody beside me. I have my butchery way of doing it as I take the schematic of the bike, which is usually in a little manual, there's usually a schematic, and I try to trace out from the battery, here's the juice coming from the battery, and it's going to always wind up going to the key, so that circuit has to be good. Then from the key to the switch to the headlight, that has to test positive. And then when the headlight is on, it's got to send juice to the headlight. And then it's got to send it, I guess, on an RD, it goes to the high beam, low beam. And then it's got to go from there to the headlight. So you break it down, and at the last thing, it's got to have a good ground. And a lot of times when you're making yourself crazy, you find out one of the black wires is disconnected inside the headlight. But again, that's an area I like to always get somebody who's a lot better than I am at doing it. And I have struggled with electrical things my whole life. I renovated 3 houses from the studs up, and when it came to electrical work, I always had somebody helping me do it. So, and I was glad they did. Now this is from Scott, and I've been following the progress of this bike. He's bought this, and oh boy, it looked like it really needed a lot of tender love and care. I think we featured it on some of the previous videos. But it looks like he's got it all polished up. It's a nice touring VStar, and it was quite a bit of work. And I know Scott over the years has done some beautiful, he's got a bobber, he's got some sport bikes, and he's really, he shares the passion of restoring these old bikes. Yeah, a comment from Steve that makes a lot of sense. Now I take the bolts when I take the bike apart. I just did a tire change. I put all the bolts that go on this side, the bolts that go on that side, the spacers. But he does something even smarter. When he takes something apart, he puts the bolt that goes back into the hole it goes in. Whatever works for you, and that's a good idea, by the way. And another thing that I found out, when you polish a bolt, the bolts come plated. They always have plating, whether it's chrome, galvanized. Not many places sell bolts that aren't in some way plated. Even the black ones you see have black oxide on them. But if you polish all of that plating off to where you're down to raw, absolutely raw metal, yes, you can make them real shiny, and I do. But then there's maintenance. Then maybe 3 months, 4 months. If you ride in the rain, maybe the next day. They may tend to corrode or whatever. And in my case, I'm always polishing a bike almost every time I ride it. So I just take, and it's not a big deal. But for some people that don't want to do that, another way to do it that I've done is mix up a little 4-to-1 clear, put the bolt back in where it goes, wipe it down with some acetone, and put like a nail polish, put a coat of clear on it. And that'll go for a really long time. But once you tighten that bolt, that clear breaks, and then you've got to repolish the bolt or re-clear it, or both. And I know some people, and I've seen it, I never mention it to people, but I've seen people, they take silver paint and just paint over the rust. Better to wire wheel that rust off before you do that. And by the way, all these little comments, they all add up. They all seem insignificant until all of a sudden one day your bike's a rust bucket and somebody else's isn't, and then you wonder what did I do differently? As Scott did a complete detailing on his Yamaha, and he sent me these high-def photos of. It looks like a brand new bike, to be honest. He did a great job on this. And again, all of these little detail things, I just try to emphasize to people. It's not one big thing. It's a lot of little things, polishing, cleaning, keeping the salt off the bike, just general maintenance. Now, a comment from John B., and this is the comment, I have heard this a million times, and I agree with it. John B., love of motorcycling keeps us young. It's not really the love of motorcycling. To me, I think we could expand it. The love of anything that keeps you mentally and physically active. If you play golf, you play tennis, bowling, restore motorcycles, fly model airplanes, go scuba diving. It doesn't matter. The one thing you can't do nothing. You can't sit on a couch and eat ice cream. That's what I found anyway. Ask me how I know. Being busy, and boy, I can't, in my life, and I'm going to be 78 years old very soon, I think part of the secret is, and I learned it from John DeTavio, who lived to 92 and stayed active right to the very end. We worked on carpeting jobs together and stuff. God bless him. So Anyway, I always think staying busy is really the key to life. And motorcycles really will, if you're restoring an old bike or riding every day or both, you probably have added a few years to your life already. And on the last video, we showed the restoration that Ian in Scotland was doing on his 1937 motorcycle. And we went back and forth with a few things I thought would make it easy for him to get the best possible quality job and still have the chrome showing. And it looks like he took that to heat. He followed it up with some pictures. And thank you, Ian. It's made my day complete seeing this. 1937. Okay, and now this is one that I've seen firsthand. This I know is true. What happened is a fellow named Kristen. Now, it's unlikely that this would ever happen. Very unlikely. But it does happen. And it has happened to me. And it has happened to Luciano both. That there's something in the fuel delivery, either the carburetors or the Viton tip in the carburetors or the petcock or both, that allows the fuel to just drain into the intake manifold and ultimately wind up in the oil supply. And when you look in the window and you see where it should be halfway up the glass window and it's full all of a sudden and you didn't add any oil, there's a good chance you might have some gas in the oil. And there's a cure for it, and you want to be real diligent about doing it. First off, pinch the fuel line with a pair of forceps or something. Drain the oil and see if it's real watery and smells like gas, you got a problem. So the first thing is to fix the problem. If it's the Viton tips, you can take, I've talked about RD carburetors and the Viton tips many times, but that can be it. Or the petcock, in the case of other bikes that don't have an automatic petcock. Sometimes the automatic petcock doesn't shut off. But if that's the case, what you want to do is drain the oil. Go get 4 quarts of oil, put the oil in the bike, take the plugs out if it's accessible easily, and I would hit the starter a few times to make sure you don't have hydraulic lock, because if you do, you can damage the engine. Once you know that that's okay, put the plugs back in and start the engine, and about 10 minutes later, let it sit and idle, drain that oil out, and if that oil is nice and like real oil, put another thing of oil in. The minute you don't do that, you run the risk of doing some damage to the engine. It's not worth it. And Luciano, thank you for sharing that information. I did have it happen to me, but I don't remember. I think it was on the 750. There was a time when we were doing track days, and we had trouble with the one set of carburetors, and I remember having to do that same thing of flush the oil a couple times. But Luciano helped me figure out exactly how to do it, and it worked perfectly. And the bike is still running perfectly. So, little progress report of a repair Scott is making to his RZ tank, and he's using a CA, and I get to email him back and forth many times how I would do this repair, and he's been sending me pictures pretty much on a regular basis, and I guess it's only a matter of time we're going to see the whole bike put back into one piece. Go get him, Scott. Ken's Garage has a bunch of RZs stumbled on the channel, and hopefully we'll share some photos soon. Ken, we're looking forward to it. There's something about RZ 350s, and we got other people that have sent comments in. It blows me away how many people love two-strokes, and RZs are probably right up at the top of that list. And this is a sad one. I don't know the fella's name. It's AICD 1990, and he used to restore sport bikes, and he just found it got too hard to get the parts. I could relate to that because I've struggled to get parts that I wanted from time to time. But I hate to hear that somebody is not enjoying the sport anymore. And I'm going through these. We have another one that's sad. Dan, I'm sorry to hear this, but I've heard it a million times before. Sorry he sold his 83 GS 1100E. Wish he had it back. And boy, I go to bed every night wishing I could get back right now, freeze my life, go back and get my 55 Chevy I've sold for $400. My Air Coupe, I wish I could get that back. I wish I could get some of the old Lionel trains I sold years ago. It makes me crazy. And all my RDs, holy mackerel, I could start a business with the amount of RDs I had. We all do this. We all sell something, take the money and go buy potato chips with it. And 10 years later, somebody rides by on a the bike we used to have, and we don't have the potato chips anymore. Some photos from John of his MT-09. He's been sharing tire information and information in general. He loves his MT-09, as everybody I know that has one. Doesn't matter what year it is even. We love these bikes. Actually, to be honest, the problem I have is I love them all. Now, in keeping with the theme of that I seem to see over and over again, Striper Vince sent a really nice comment. He said he had 11 RZ 350s. Boy, I'm jealous. I only had 7 RDs, so you're 4 ahead of me here. And he said he terrorized the streets of San Fernando Valley. Well, we did some terrorizing. I'm glad there weren't terrorists back in my day. We would have been some of them. But anyway, there's another nice comment in Canada from Clyde, restoring an 82 GPZ, and made a carbon fiber windshield using the video, the technique I showed on the video. He said it worked perfect and it was easy to do. Well, it really is easy to do. Look, I did it, so how hard could it be? And congratulations, by the way. And by the way, when you have these issues with windshields cracking, it's always from over-tightening the bolts or things that are bent. You really, as soon as you tighten those bolts, ooh, and never put Loctite on those aluminum bolts or you'll never get them off. Oh, these are pictures from Clyde of the carbon fiber windshield that he managed to make after looking at how I did mine for the FCR. And by the way, mine lasted many years of track days, in fact, and I call it rough service. But that's quite a nice job. Congratulations, Clyde. Okay, a great comment. I love it. Adrian, quick shifter. He looked at the video that I showed how to install a quick shifter on the MT-09. He said, thank you for not leaving out any of the steps. Well, that's what I try, but then I hear people say the videos are too long. You know, I'm between a rock and a hard place, kind of a Sophie's choice. I want to make sure I've answered everybody. I haven't left anybody out. I hate to do that. Anyway, we have Old Flat Top, and he said, a Gerson mask sold by Harbor Freight, and always to wear a mask when you spray two-part. Now, some people have commented that when I spray ordinary paint, the red paint, I don't wear a mask. I spray with the wind at my back. I can't smell the paint. If you paint in a spray booth, you're breathing that paint in. Now, as bad as it is I have to deal with the weather, the rain, the temperature, the birds pooping on me and bugs, but I don't deal with one thing. When the wind is blowing at my back, I don't even smell the paint. But when I do two-part, I always wear a mask. Even when sometimes I mix the paint, I get ahead of the learning curve there. It really is important to wear a mask. And the one that Harbor Freight sells, by the way, is very good. Now, a comment, I've heard this before, and actually, everybody that knows me for a long time, they know this is true. You always say coffee, so we know where you live in North Jersey. Well, the reason is we're always cold after a long ride. We have gone through a winter. And you don't see it on the videos, but I've ridden almost every day. My break-off point is 40 degrees. If it's 41, I'm going to ride. And I've actually worn out one of the tires on the bike already doing that. Now, Paul with the R6. Another really good question. How long will paint last? Well, if this is a good question, and I'm not going to pretend I know the scientific answer, but I know the real world answer. I have paint that's 30 years old, 20 years old, but it's lacquer and acrylic lacquer. If lacquer and acrylic lacquer dry out, you can add slow dry and thinner to it and get it to be paint again in a pinch. I'd always prefer, if I'm doing a job for somebody, I'd rather buy new paint. But in a pinch, I've used old paint, but I haven't used the new urethane. I don't know the truth about the urethane. I don't know, but old lacquer and acrylic lacquer, you can just add some thinner to it, stir it up, and don't make it too thin. And the pigment never evaporates, the binder never evaporates, the thinner evaporates. And those are the 3 main ingredients in paint. Anyway. Now we're going to get into, and this is really, I wanted to answer this question because I just had this experience just the other day. John, MT-09. He put on a set of Michelin 6s, and they did not last 5,000 miles. Obviously, he's an aggressive rider. He didn't say if he does track days or not, but he's going to try a set of Dunlops next and see how they last. I'm interested, John, and thank you for sharing that, because I just took a set. Now, when I did the restoration of the Black Ninja, when I did the restoration with the gold wheels, I put on a brand new set of Michelin 2s. That was what I had in stock at the time, and that was several years ago. And I just took the front one off. The back one, I think, went 7,000 miles, but I've already replaced that. But the front one lasted 11,800, and I made that comment to a couple other people on my circle of friends, and Michelle said her tires on her Triumph lasted 12,000. She was happy with that, and of course, Jose commented he loves the fact that the Michelin 5s, the 5s now, not the 6s, they made his bike handle much better. He was real happy with the way they mounted up and balanced. But again, anything to do with tires, wow, it just goes on forever. And John, I appreciate it because I do keep notes on everything. My notebook is this thick. And I have had, this is my experience. I had on the R1, tires that came with it didn't last but 3,000-4,000 miles. In the beginning, I was just a crazy man with the clip-ons and everything. And I had put on a set of Michelin 2s that lasted great. They lasted 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 miles. I was happy with an R1. Then I put on a set of Michelin 3s that didn't last well at all. So I don't know what changes. That I haven't changed my riding style at all. And then when I put on the Pirelli Angels, and boy, were they difficult to mount. Wow. I did that at Vlad's request, try a set of them. We tried a set of the Angels on the R1 now, and they seem to be lasting pretty good. But I'm not done with the test yet. But I will report at the end of it when I pull the tires off, as I did the other day, and I got 11.8 out of the Michelin 2 front. That's not a real heavy bike, not a real super powerful bike, but I do a lot of riding, and I go up and down Route 80, 30 miles each way almost every day. That's 60 miles of riding, so you would think if the tires were going to wear out real quick, I don't know. But 11.8, I'll settle for that any day of the week. Anyway, we've got some other cool stuff that I haven't been able to put together yet on this video because we're working on, I wanted to explain this again, we're doing 3 restorations at once. And this is just personal information people may or may not know. I have had in my family over this winter several health issues to deal with and some personal issues I had to deal with. And I really did not get an early start on my restorations. I lost almost 3 months of restoring bikes. I started these projects for Vlad. I don't know how long they're going to go. I'm going to try to meticulously do every step of it. Maybe they'll get a little long. But at some point in the time, that V series of videos should have some really good information on it. And in the past, I've done as many as 5 bikes at once, and it really got labor intensive. 3, I'm really doing this exactly the way Vlad wanted to do. And we're going to start working on that BMW in the very near future, and hopefully get that BMW for him back out on the road. Now, before I end the video, I want to thank all the people who over the many years have supported our channel, shared pictures of their projects, their ongoing projects, and things they've finished working on. People that have shared the tire information and other information that we've all shared and found useful over the years. I know I have. And most of all, I just enjoy looking at some of the beautiful motorcycles that other people have restored. And every one of my friends that has a passion for motorcycling, we all seem to enjoy the same thing. We all enjoy the same interaction. We all enjoy looking at each other's bikes at the meetups. And with the spring just around the corner, I'm sure there's going to be some new bikes we haven't seen yet. We're going to be doing those 3 restorations for Vlad. I have no idea how long that's going to take. We are in a whole different world of hurt here with things going on in my family that I can't control. And just the fact that I'm getting old is another problem. At 77, I'm not Chicken Little anymore. But I still love getting up every morning, either riding motorcycles, working on them, talking about them, or swapping pictures on the internet. And if you'd like your picture, if you'd like to share it with us, and just send it into this address. That's my email address. Make it as an attachment. It's a lot easier for me to get it out onto the video in high def if you do that. We try to ride all season long. The channel's dedicated to sharing useful information for people that have the passion for motorcycling, or people that just like to be entertained, like to hang out, have a cup of coffee, and see what people all over the world are doing with their bikes. And whether it's in Scotland or Australia or Norway or in my backyard, whatever we do, by sharing it, we both win. If you can learn from my experiences and I can learn from yours, the odds are good we're both going to be smarter and we're both going to enjoy life more. And thanks so much for watching.